Senator Roberts, take us through to the break.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for appearing here today. Senator Sinodinos, I must acknowledge you to start with. Public policy needs to be based on solid real-world evidence, and I want to thank you for your efforts in recent months for doing that, to initiate that discussion that we're now having with the CSIRO, and that we started with the Chief Scientist. And I want to commend one of your staff, Jeff Mason, for his involvement.
Excellent staffer. Yep.
Thank you very much.
And that's ongoing, Senator Roberts.
Yes, it's been a little bit slow, but I don't think that's his fault at all. He has been pushing it along. We look forward to continuing that conversation. It's been quite worthwhile. Dr. Marshall, accountability and transparency are the keys to the Senate estimates processes, and we look not only at costs but also security and risk. Now, you mentioned last time in answer to Senator Carr that your salary is $822,000. Would I be able to get from your department, please, the positions or titles of scientists in the climate change field in the CSIRO who are paid $200,000 or more, please? Not just scientists, but also all managers as well.
Senator, before I pass to Mr. Roy, it hasn't been our practice to talk about individuals, Senator, either by name. It's a way of respecting the public servants that support the country. But we have previously in the Senate and historically published the salary bands of officers, but just don't feel it's appropriate to single out individuals.
That's why I asked for titles. So if titles, sorry?
You're looking for classifications or the names of
I don't want the names for the reasons Dr. Marshall's already mentioned. I don't want that, and I don't want to invade people's privacy. If the titles are going to single people out, then I don't want that either. Then I'm happy to take it in bands. Just the managers, anyone in the field of climate who is paid $200,000 or more per year, including all their entitlements, allowances, super, the whole packages, please.
So, Senator, we have made a commitment, and let me play to you what that commitment is. So for members of the executive team or CSIRO's leadership team, we will disclose in bandings based on base salary, superannuation, performance payments, the sort of stuff you spoke about.
Will that give total
Roy,
pay?
is much of that information already in your annual report?
Not at the moment, Chair, but it was in previous annual reports, so it's a commitment we're giving. And we made that at the last hearing. Well, we've furthered that commitment, and now for every CSIRO officer who has a total REM package in excess of $200,000. It's not our intention to list by job role, it's our intention to list by banding. Yep. So there's full transparency to the public to say that if you're in the range of 200 to 225, CSIRO's got 8 of them or 10 or whatever the number happens to be, we'll figure that out once we do the end of year.
Yeah, that's all I need. When will that be provided?
Our expectation would be late in July, early in August period of time. We do need to go through a process, though, Senator, to make sure those numbers stand up to audit scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And we need to understand what we need to take through the CSIRO board to make sure we get the audit clear off for them as well, too. But it won't be a long time after the close of the fiscal year.
I'm happy with that. That'll be good. So you can send that to us?
We will put it on our website, Senator.
But can I just ask, where is this line of questioning going? You want to know the salaries of these individuals. They work in the climate science space. What sort of point are you trying to make?
Well, I'm not trying to make any point there. I just want to learn. So that's not a line of questioning. That's my end question on that particular topic.
Okay.
Can I ask, Madam Chair, whether or not it would be, if that sort of information is available across the organisation rather than a specific division?
So, Senator, just to clarify, it wasn't our intention to break it down by business unit or by scientific type. This is cross-organisation is our intention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm asking for cross-climate as well.
Senator, can I just add to that? I think there is a whole-of-government approach to making it much more transparent and accountable in terms of senior executive officers and other highly paid staff. And we're going through a process at the moment trying to make sure there's that consistent information that's going to be prepared for all agencies, and it will be available on the website.
But Madam Secretary, it's not your intention to provide it by specific function, is it?
It's going to be very similar to what was provided in the financial statements of the past.
Yeah,
that is, it'll be banding numbers of people in particular bandwidths.
I'm just with the Minister on this about in terms of identifying a particular function within the
we're on the
Commonwealth
same
Public
wavelength.
Service.
Yeah. We're on the same wavelength.
But Senator Roberts is asking for the climate area.
So I understand that, Senator.
Which I'd be interested in too.
Well, one of the difficulties is we don't want to expose individuals. There'd be such a small number in the climate area, it would be easy to identify that that's Fred or Mary, and that would, we believe, be inappropriate.
Are there related fields to climate that they could be lumped in with?
Well, we will do them across all of CSIRO is our intention.
Across the organisation.
Perhaps, Senator Roberts, you could put exactly what it is that you want on notice.
I'll accept what you're saying.
CSIRO can respond,
that's
and then
fine.
we can work from there.
No need to take it any further, that's fine. Okay, Dr. Marshall, are you aware that because of the focus on cutting carbon dioxide, energy prices have risen, and that as a result people now are returning to burning wood, and that's increasing real pollutants like particulates, and that's causing concern in Victoria? It's been reported in the media the EPA is concerned.
Senator Dr. Mayfield, Executive Director. No, I'm not directly aware of those reports, but obviously there's a range of energy sources that are used across Australia, and they vary from time to time based on different reasons. But I'd have to look into the specifics of that to understand it.
Okay, thank you. The rest of my questions are going to be mainly to Dr. Clue. Is that the correct pronunciation? Okay, thank
Clue,
you.
yes.
Sorry?
Yes, Clue.
Clue. Okay, thank you, Doctor. They're to do with peer review and the scientific method. Does peer review have an important place in the scientific method?
Peer review has a very important place in the work that we do in CSIRO. It's how we get independent review. Scientific method is slightly different to peer review. Scientific method is asking a question, posing it in a way that's testable, and testing it with observations and experiment.
But you would largely follow, where possible, the scientific method?
So as I said in earlier discussions that we've had, Senator, CSIRO is very strongly committed to both the scientific method and to peer review.
Okay.
Senator, if I could add, we have an internal peer review process for most of our work as well. So we have two layers, if you like, of peer review for many of the things that we publish. It's really important to us to make sure that our science is of the highest possible standard, which is, I think, one of the reasons why CSIRO science is in the top 0.1% of the world in our 4 core areas of science, which is a remarkable accomplishment for Australia, I think.
Okay. So I don't rely on appeals to name. I try to look at objectivity. That internal peer review is done by people within CSIRO?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And also then an external peer review, which is the more conventional process.
When you peer review a paper, do you always require access to all data sets and codes?
So the peer review process is done in 2 steps, as Dr. Marshall has said. Within CSIRO, we have an internal peer review step, and most of our science gets published in journals, which they also have their independent peer review process. So there's the 2 steps. Your question was...
When you peer review a paper, do you always require access to all data sets and code?
Well, I think the reason why I explained the 2 steps was that the nature of the peer review process to some degree depends on the journal with which the paper is being published. But typically there would be an expectation that the data that are being used have themselves been rigorously reviewed.
Okay. When you submit a paper for external peer review, do you always provide all data sets and code?
Again, that will depend on the policies of the journal.
Okay. So not always. Do the journals to which you submit papers always require the data sets and code? You've answered that question. Not all of them do. Does the peer review of a paper by 3 or sometimes even 2 unpaid anonymous reviewers without the data sets or code guarantee the correctness of a paper?
I want to clarify one thing about the peer review process. The first is that there is an independent, sometimes anonymous, sometimes not, review by referees. It may be 2 people, it might be 4, and then there'll be an editor involved, and that process proceeds more or less as you've described. But the other element of peer review, of course, is by publishing our research, the broader community get to test and explore and question the ideas that are being put out there. And it's those two aspects, the authoritative review of the paper originally by independent assessment, and then it being published and available for the broader scientific community to test those ideas that have been published. That is the basis of the strength of our science.
So are you aware of the SoCal hoax?
Of the which?
SoCal hoax, S-O-K-A-L.
No, I'm not
It was a bogus paper that went through peer review and was accepted and published. Recently, two people in America at the Portland State University, one who's a doctorate in maths and a background in physics, were so alarmed that they published through a peer review paper another hoax. And it's called the Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct. And in that they claimed that penises cause climate change. So the point I'm getting at is that that was published in a social sciences, admittedly, paper, but it has credibility because it's been peer reviewed. So I'm very concerned about some of the peer-reviewed papers. So now we've just gone through the actual publishing of a peer-reviewed paper.
You've quoted two papers. You've then jumped to a general proposition that this means every peer-reviewed paper in the world potentially is subject to some sort of potential for fraud.
Senator Sinodinos, I did not. I said that the peer review process
I'm sorry. You and I have a process going where we've got you talking to CSIRO and all the rest of it. That's all fine. That's all part of the process. But this idea that we can jump from two specific, very specific papers to a general proposition about peer-reviewed scientific findings, we really are in a very Kafkaesque world.
Senator Sinodinos, you're misrepresenting what I said. And I don't know why you're doing that, but that was a misrepresentation.
Well,
I'm saying
please clarify what you mean.
I'm saying there are possibly holes in the scientific peer review process, and I'm looking to see how CSIRO does its scientifically peer review and how it uses. So when, Dr. Clue, you, meaning the CSIRO, cite a peer-reviewed paper, are you confident in the peer review process that the peer reviewers followed?
As I said earlier, the nature of the review process, it's broadly similar across most of the journals that we publish in, but some journals might be different than others. So our confidence in the science is derived by the three steps that I've already described. First of all, an internal review within CSIRO, external review by the journal. We publish in the highest quality journals with rigorous peer review process, and then that information is out there for the broader scientific community to review. So the confidence in our publications that are peer reviewed is built by the rigour of the peer review process for that journal.
Before the officer goes on, the Sokol affair, at the time, the journal to which this paper was submitted did not practice academic peer review, and it did not submit the article for outside expert review by a physicist.
At the time, correct. Well, so my question was, when you cite a peer-reviewed paper, are you confident in the peer-reviewed process that the peer reviewers followed?
Fair question.
Yes.
I need a biscuit.
Fair question.
You are confident. Okay, does the peer review, if you choose to label a reference as peer-reviewed and cited as such, do you always include a disclaimer that peer review is no guarantee of truth?
Are you talking about me personally, Senator
CSIRO.
Roberts?
Senator, maybe I could take that.
Sure.
We have an internal process. We hold ourselves to the highest calibre of science. I stand behind our scientists. They are some of the best scientists in the world. And the purpose of science is the pursuit of truth.
Exactly.
So CSIRO scientists will present the truth and the data and the facts as best they can. No matter who's funding us, no matter what the outcome is, our mission is to deliver that scientific truth, and we absolutely do it to the best of our ability. So
I accept that. Unfortunately, the UN has not shown the same rigour and has denied peer review in many of its key processes, denied that.
Well, Senator Roberts, I'm not entirely sure whether the CSIRO can apologise on behalf of the UN.
No, I'm not expecting it to, but I'm just saying that peer review. I asked a question.
This is your very last question.
If you choose to label a reference as peer reviewed, do you always include a disclaimer that peer review is no guarantee of the truth? So if you cite such a paper, checked by someone else, peer-reviewed by another journal, can you guarantee its truth? Otherwise, you're lending your name to it, and that risks tarnishing the fine name of the CSIRO developed over, 70 years?
So, Senator, we don't put a disclaimer when we present references, but when CSIRO publishes, we're presenting our scientific conclusions.
When you cite an external paper...
In the references.
Correct. Do you say that it's no guarantee of the truth? Otherwise, you're lending your name to that.
We do not, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. I think that's a very good spot for us to break